was the Iranians levying a IRGC toll of $2 million per vessel. Donald Trump was the one who brought up the 20% fee that he thought he should impose for the United States. Now they are down to negotiating percentages. Iran now wants 7% of the cost of value of the cargo, and Oman is looking at 3%. Donald Trump now wants no percent. So if there is a deal that comes out of this, it's going to be between Iran and Oman, and the United States will have to acquiesce.
A deal between Iran and Oman to agree a route for shipping through the Strait of Hormuz is said to be in its final stages, but it would give Tehran control over traffic in the strait. That is according to a senior Iranian source. This would mark a significant concession to Iran, and US officials have repeatedly insisted that they would not agree to give control of the vital shipping route to Tehran. Let's speak to Malcolm Nance, who's a former US Navy intelligence officer. Good evening to you, Malcolm.
Good evening. How are you?
Very well. Delighted to have you with us. I'm actually seeing a report that Iran is now claiming that it has reached an agreement with Oman on a route for shipping through the Strait of Hormuz. Are you concerned by the idea that these two nations could cook up some agreement between themselves to control this route?
Well, you know, the Strait of Hormuz is not actually an international body. It is a narrow gap that has 2 miles overlap on each side between Oman and Iran's internationally declared waterway. So I've been through it several dozen times. Many people who are mariners who've been in the Persian Gulf understand that. But this was completely open until the United States attacked Iran. Now that the concept that it's going to be able to have fees placed on it, the Iranians are understanding that this is an enormous windfall. It was considered a bilateral negotiation that was going on between Oman and Iran. And initially, it was the Iranians levying a IRGC toll of $2 million per vessel. Donald Trump was the one who brought up the 20% fee that he thought he should impose for the United States. Now they are down to negotiating percentages. Iran now wants 7% of the cost of value of the cargo, and Oman is looking at 3%. Donald Trump now wants no percent. So if there is a deal that comes out of this, it's going to be between Iran and Oman, and the United States will have to acquiesce.
Well, you say that the US will have to acquiesce. Do you think that the US, that President Trump and others in his administration would really be happy after going to war with Iran to then have to concede so much control to the Iranian regime over this absolutely vital shipping route?
Well, this is where unintended consequences and not listening to your intelligence community plays out. Since I was 20 years old, the first time that I transited the Strait of Hormuz, and to when I was having battles in the 1980s with the Iranians, it never closed. It was never, the Iranians were never strong enough to where they had the capability of closing the Strait of Hormuz. The Iranians had learned over that 40 years that they needed the naval capability, they needed anti-ship missiles, ballistic missiles, and they were never given the opportunity until the United States carried out the attacks on Iran. And now they see they have strategic leverage, not just over the United States, but the entire world's energy processes. So they know that the only thing that closes the Strait of Hormuz is the threat of closing the Strait of Hormuz. You attack one ship, you have small boats go out and shoot at it, insurance companies won't insure it. So now Iran has this enormous ability to place pressure, even at the smallest pressure points, to get the West to acquiesce to it. And there's no going back, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I mean, it's extraordinary. You say you've been through the Strait of Hormuz. That waterway has been effectively closed for not just weeks, but months now. Some shipping has got through. We're told that much of the waterway has been mined. There are specific routes. I mean, if Iran and Oman come to this deal and they say, yeah, okay, it's going to be absolutely fine, you can take this particular route, we're going to charge you 7% or 3% or whatever it is. Do you think that shipping companies, and for that matter their insurers, would really be confident enough to go through when, as you've so rightly pointed out, all Iran's got to do is send a small boat out to fire a few shots.
Well, shipping companies are going to have to do business. And now we see that Iran understands that the United States has no capacity to stop it. The U.S. Navy, I'm quite surprised. I was in the U.S. Navy, that we have so little naval power in the Indian Ocean and none in the Persian Gulf itself proper. We took 2 ships through in the middle of the night under fire, and that was it. We do not have the capacity to affect freedom of navigation as we've always done. If the U.S. Navy, with all its firepower, can't do it, insurance companies certainly aren't going to be allowing ships to go through when the shooting is going on. If there's an agreement, the shooting stops. The Iranians get a small fee, which, by the way, $2 million was much lower than the 7% or even the 3% they're negotiating now. So we should have taken the deal months ago. The shooting would have subsided. Merchant traffic would have picked up. Iran would be making money. The Gulf states would be making money. The global economy would not go into, threaten to go into recession. And we are being held hostage really by Donald Trump's temperament, and it's not particularly stable.
President Trump always tries to claim huge victory from every potential scenario. But if the US is forced to accept a deal whereby Iran and Oman between them control that waterway and take a certain rake off of whatever percentage points, I mean, that would surely be an absolute humiliation for the US president, wouldn't it, at the end of this war?
Well, we're well beyond humiliation. I mean, the United States has effectively lost this war. War is, as I believe von Clausewitz says, the ability to bring your enemy to your will. Iran has brought us to their will. The United States dropped a lot of bombs, but we did not affect the opening of the Strait of Hormuz, which was open the day before we attacked. And now we've put ourselves in a position where Iran is regionally stronger. They are able to dictate to the nations around them. The United States does not have the capacity, apart from complete and total war, of making their way into those navigable waterways. So we gave this up ourselves. And what we need to do is learn the lessons from it so that it doesn't happen in other waterways.
Malcolm Nance, former US Navy intelligence officer. Really good to get your insight. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Cheers, my pleasure.
You're listening to Carole Walker on Times Radio.